Hey everyone, welcome to Ink Scribes, the comics podcast where we discuss the art and craft of comics. I'm Colin Singh, an aspiring comics artist and lifelong student of the craft, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Eric Zawadzki and Taylor Stauft. Before we get into today's episode, the boys have a couple of plugs. They've got some books coming out, so Eric, let them know.
I have an image book out in shops right now. It's called Assorted Crisis Events, written by Deniz Camp, done by me, um, along with Jordi Belair and Hassan Otsmain Elhau on coloring and lettering. And it's a really ambitious book. It's a crazy book. It's been getting a lot of buzz. So I'd appreciate anybody watching this now. Pick it up.
Do it.
And Taylor, what have you got?
I've got. I'm the artist on and co-creator of From Fire and Blood, a Jason Zhang adventure. It's going to be one of the 4 books available at the on the Dauntless Showcase #1 Kickstarter. Link will be below. That launches April 1st.
All right, everybody. So today we got a very special episode, hopefully the first in a long line where we spotlight creator duos. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about writer Brian Azzarello and artist Eduardo Risso. Today, we're only going to be spotlighting the Batman work these two have done, specifically the Batman story from Wednesday Comics and their run on Batman from issues 620 to 625.
So, did you guys pick up Wednesday Comics when it was coming out?
Oh, yeah. I was super amped. For Wednesday Comics.
Yeah?
I couldn't wait. Yeah, I own doubles. I bought multiples of each issue.
Hell yeah.
That was totally my jam. I would say it's probably the most ambitious thing that DC's ever published. And I say that kind of going like, because they've done a lot of innovative things. But I think Mark Chiarello, the guy that spearheaded the book, all praise to that guy. Every project that he spearheaded, Solo, Batman Black and White, have been just like can't lose. If you pick up one of those books, you can't lose. You get more than your money's worth. In this case, in Wednesday Comics, like Eric is flipping through here now, it's probably one of the best things that I'd ever picked up from DC.
Holy shit.
And we'll have to do an episode in the future exclusively on Wednesday Comics because that's not what this episode is. But just wanted to show it off a bit, which don't mind the glare all over the glossy, but you can see the difference between the newsprint and the glossy, and it is fascinating to me to color. It's fascinating to me to compare the color of this because I find that gradients don't really work that well on newsprint. It looks amazing glossy, but less so in newsprint, and it feels like it was colored specifically for the glossy. Because I think the Wednesday Comics, when it was coming out weekly, it was a fun novelty, but in the long run, it's this hardcover that's going to be seen more.
Yeah. When I first heard about it, I was in personally a very anti-DC headspace at the time. So I just I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to buy it. And really looks like I missed out because I really like that format of it's just newsprint. It's folded up. It's kind of harkening back to what comics were for the, first 40 years of their existence of they're meant to be beat up, rolled up, put in your pocket, handed around, passed, traded with your pals.
Funny books.
The
funny books. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's not really. It doesn't give collectability vibe when it's handed to you folded up.
No. But it's interesting that you say it was colored. It was probably colored with this gloss in mind. That's because I remember podcasts talking about it as an experiment, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, because it was unusual. It was a weekly book and folded up, and I mean, it seems pretty experimental, and there was always talks of like, oh, when are you going to do it again? And they never did it again. I think it was just an absolute nightmare behind
I
the
would
scenes
think so, right?
because it
has
came
to
out
be.
weekly, and these creators are some of the best in the industry, and some of the best
Yeah.
in the industry tend to not be great with a schedule. So
Well,
I think
not
there were
just
Yeah.
some really close calls with the last several weeks, but I mean, yeah, everybody made it.
But it's also a very expensive book to produce because you've got the top of the line creators on it. None of these guys come cheap, right? You had Paul Pope, you had Ryan Sook, Dave Gibbons, Joe Kubert, who else? Mike Allred, Neil Gaiman did a strip with Mike Allred. Who
The
else do we
Ryan
got?
Sook one is one of my favorites. The other favorite of mine is
Lieber Mayho.
um, the other favorite of mine is the Flash one by Carl Kerschel and Brendan Fletcher and Dave
Yeah,
McKeag,
I was
the great
partial
Dave
to
McKeag.
the Joe Quinones Green Lantern strip. That was one of my favorites.
Oh, written by Busiek, right?
Yeah, Busick. Yeah,
I gotta check out this
Right
Strange
here.
Adventures one. The warlord, Lord Corgo, besieges the city of Ranagar, intent on acquiring the secrets of Adam Strange's Zeta beams. Hell yes!
Yeah, right here.
It sounds rad as hell.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing artwork by Paul Pope.
Yeah, Paul Pope. We should definitely do an episode on. I have almost no interaction with his work.
Really? Paul
Yeah,
Pope's one of my guys, dude.
I know. It looks.
I'll
I think that's one of the artists that I've only as a mature man can I come to now. I
Oh,
think if I
Brian
had
Stokely.
tried earlier in my life, I would have been like, "Man, I don't like how ugly it is."
yeah.
I don't know if the
Well,
audience can tell, but I was a real, crabby little dork for a long
yeah.
time.
So
Oh, I mean,
hey,
like I
off
had
the
terrible
record,
taste as a kid.
real quick though, off the record, Taylor, why were you so anti DC back in the day?
Oh, I think I had a. I think it was an at a. I was opposed to the kind of blue sky attitude. I think I was really deep in my feelings about how intense and dark and grounded and gritty stories should be, and I hadn't yet really come to the come to see just how fun comics should be and how you can still have grounded, weighted stories that still turn out well. You
That's
know,
funny because you ended up becoming a Grant Morrison acolyte, and I
I
guess
know.
he
Yeah.
must be the one that like transferred your thinking, maybe.
I think so. Yeah, especially listening to the audio version of the Super Gods book. There's a line in it where he says, in his first Animal Man run, he tried to drag Animal Man into the real world, and after completing it, was like, I don't like this. From now on, it's just I'm going to drag the audience into the comic world.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is not a Wednesday Comics episode. This is
No.
an episode where we talk about the collaboration between Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo.
Mm-hmm.
100 Bullets is actually, top 5 favorite comics. It's somewhere in my top 5. I love it so much. And the two of them as a team are just magic.
You can't
And yeah,
lose.
that's what
Can't lose
we'll talk about
comics.
in this episode. So, but what are some other examples of great artist writer teams?
So besides
Because you want to
this,
make this a series,
I
Colin?
do want to make it a series. I want to spotlight Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I want to do like Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, Mark Miller and Frank Quitely. Teams like that.
So some other examples would be like Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
they're great together.
A newer one, I think, would be Tom King and Mitch Gerads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my personal favorite would be like Morrison and Quitely, which you already mentioned. Ennis and Dillon, Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Wolfman and Perez.
I was going to say Wolfman and Colin. Check out our Gene Colin episode.
Well, but they
how
only
much work did they do together?
Yeah.
After Wolfman left for DC, Colin went over and they worked. They did several series together that I cannot call to mind immediately, but is very reminiscent of the Dracula stuff.
Okay, but also on top of that, what do you guys think of this might be a little off field, but Wade and Samney? Mark Wade and Chris Samney?
Yeah. They don't produce. They haven't produced as much, but
outside of Daredevil, I don't really.
Well, Black Widow, and they've got something on the stands right now.
Too. Sorry,
they've got Batman and Robin, and the reason I think they work together is because they co-write it together.
Yeah, they're credited as just like storytellers, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's an important aspect of these these big duos, and it's probably one of the closest relationships between writer and artist that I think Mark Waid has had, maybe, but I might be wrong off that. I might be off base. But okay, what about Kirkman and Otley?
Yep, I'll get behind Kirkman. I'll put up Kirkman.
Well, because they switch off. It's like it's Kirkman and Otley and Kirkman and Walker.
Yeah, except Corey Walker doesn't produce enough.
No.
Yeah, they haven't done enough work together. I wouldn't put them in the same.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, but like Otley is just consistently pumping out work and like amazing work, and it seems like Otley goes off and does something, and then comes back and works with Kirkman, and then goes off to do something else, and then comes back with Kirkman, and it just seems like a consistent thing. Another example would be Claremont and Byrne, maybe, even though. You get a funny situation where like sometimes people who do not get along produced amazing work, but they only did the one thing together. They did one legendary thing. Well, they created a franchise basically. Like the franchise already existed, but it was a franchise that didn't sell. You get the two of them on X-Men, and they just make something into a behemoth.
Well, yeah, didn't they work on Iron Fist together too?
A wee bit, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
But I would preface, so I think the premise behind a creator duo episode would be that they have worked on multiple works together, until now. For whatever era they're from, they just, throughout their entire career, they've always come back to each other, and they've always, because obviously Risso, like artists work with other writers work with other artists all the time, but when they come together, they've come together multiple times throughout their career. And Azzarello and Risso is a perfect example of that. They're still producing work together today. So
for 25 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
Way more than 25
how
years.
did
it's it's 2025 now, and their first work together was back in 97, 98.
Was it? Oh, dang.
Johnny Double, yeah.
Oh,
almost 30 years then, you would say. Yeah. Johnny Double was
so
back
they
in
started off Johnny Double, that was for Vertigo, and then that started off a relationship with Vertigo, and then from there, 100 Bullets was 1999?
Yeah, 99.
And and then they did 100 issues of 100 Bullets, and then they did the Lano miniseries afterwards. They've got something going on at Distillery right now. The Blood Brothers Mothers. They recently did like a
Moonshine. They did Moonshine, right?
Moonshine. That's right, for Image Comics
and Spaceman.
Spaceman for Vertigo. Yeah,
Spaceman was a while back. It was 2011.
Yeah,
and that was only 9 issues, but that was for Vertigo as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you get short stuff here and there. Like they recently did a Bloodshot Black, White, and Red, or Black, White, and Red, and then I think they've done a whole bunch of short stories together. So they are like,
they drive really well.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a dream. I think to get in this industry and have such an impact where you and a creative partner can do something like that and
see the beginning of that relationship over at Assorted Crisis Events, available now.
Yeah.
If
I wrote the history books, maybe, but
actually, I just realized we skipped over the biggest one, Lee and Kirby.
Oh my God! Yes, you're right.
We need to run it back. We need to start this whole episode over again.
about like people at odds as well.
Yes,
they really didn't get along that well for huge chunks of their time together. But goddamn,
But somehow it's like, Jack Kirby leaves and I'll never work for you again, and then he ends up doing a Silver Surfer
yep,
thing, and a decade
Yeah.
later, and
yeah, they
yeah.
just
Okay,
for
what
whatever.
about Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo?
I would say at this point, yes, just because they
It's the
keep
beginning
coming back.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know they've worked together for over 10 years now, but it's like it's Batman, it's pretty much all Batman, and then like one or two creator owned things they had
it's
together.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
Batman.
you have
It's
Demon.
We Have Demons, and actually, I just saw at the time of this recording, Capullo has 3 pages left to go on the Creech that he brought Snyder in to help him with.
Oh, nice.
Snyder's
That'll
script in
be out
that?
soon.
I don't know if we're calling it scripting, but they are both involved in it. I think at this point the scripts are pretty loose.
Mm. Yeah, I've been following his progress on that on Instagram, and like I cannot wait for that to come out.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So first off, everybody, we're going to be looking at their strip in Wednesday Comics. It was a 12-issue series, and they had 1 page per issue for a total of a 12-page short story. Now, the thing about Eduardo Risso, there's so much you can learn from just a single page of artwork from this guy. So with Batman in Wednesday Comics, the strip is a murder mystery. Every page, I think, runs for about a dozen panels. So if this was an actual comic story, it would be a couple pages per 1 page. Every scene would be like 2 or 3 pages, but they had to condense that into just 1 page. It's an absolutely masterfully done story. It's one of my favorite stories from the Wednesday Comics run.
I guess it was designed so that like you're getting a weekly fix of all of these characters, and you have to feel somewhat satisfied that the story has moved forward and that you got a little bit of something, I guess, every week. And so that's why, like, it's a tightrope walk doing this. All the creators had to write with that in mind. And yeah, I mean, this first page I think is perfect in that
It's
effort.
perfect, but
Man, it moves fast too.
yeah, but like every page has a bow on it, right? Because
Yeah.
when you go on to the next week, the next page of the story, the scene change is completely different. For the most part, towards the end, they kind of have to condense a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's
I think
still a complete departure every page.
I think that these pages got a little less dense as the story progressed, as the deadlines were looming. I think the last several pages are, a lot less work for Rizzo for good reason. He was
Yeah.
probably designed that way. The story is it's pretty simple. It's you just have like a femme fatale and a crime mystery of a murder, like who murdered the person. And there's not much to speak about here. It's just the genre, I guess, is just a vehicle for specific moments, and Azzarello playing with language, which is one of the things he's good at. I have a writer friend who always talks about how like good comic writing is poetry and has a musicality to it. And if we go to that first page, I let me give a solid example of that. Yeah, can you zoom in on like the bottom part? So basically, this has Batman coming up to Jim Gordon, and Jim Gordon explaining, somebody's about to get murdered at the stroke of midnight. And yeah, I guess he says there was no ransom. It's just they're just going to get murdered. And so on these top panels, it goes bong, bong, bong as it gets closer to midnight, and next panel, bong, bong, bong. And so there's a musicality that's built up as we hear this recurring bong, bong, bong. And then when it finally strikes midnight, it goes bong for one panel, bong. It's now separated over 4 panels.
Yeah.
And So the first little bit is training the audience with this sort of rhythm, and then when you hear that same rhythm again, but slower and spread out, it has more impact. It slows the reader down, and we're zooming in on someone who's about to die, and it feels like a slow-mo of something bad that's about to happen. And there's a lot of this kind of thing that Azzarello and Risso play with, which is something I absolutely adore about them.
One thing that I'll say though is also this slows the reader down, and it makes you actually take in the whole, because you can read a comic in like what, 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes tops, a 22-page book.
Yeah.
I do appreciate when an artist really makes you, when he sucks you in to the point where you're actually like taking in every panel, when you're taking in every line of dialogue. You yourself have to slow down because you have to dissect as you go, and this demands that of you. Gratefully so, though. Like I could spend way more time on this page than if I was just reading it chronologically. You can pick up so much from panel to panel. Like this one is what, 13? Oh, shit. There we go. Okay. So this one runs for, let's see, not including the header, you got 3, 4, 8, 12, 16 panels on one page. And it should take you a couple of minutes to take this whole page in.
Oh yeah, the eyes, because they put in larger panels at a very good interval, like the eyes, the tower with the bat signal. It's just, especially when it's spaces like the tower, it's really like you should be not necessarily referring back to it, but holding it in your head as, where is this happening? Well, right here. You can refer back to it.
Yeah. Moving on to second page. So, did you guys get the vibe of some Minola, gargoyles and like the stonework and all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah.
Did you get that vibe from
This,
the page 2 there?
yeah, this has a very like Hellboy treading through a graveyard, or like in Hellboy from Hell. It's full of this shit, and it's, yeah. Even on a bright sunny day when they have to wear shades, it's still cast in shadow, draped in darkness, but done in such a way that it still makes sense.
Yeah, and at the bottom here, there's a cool moment where, like, oftentimes when Risso is drawing this stuff, he doesn't show the main action. He shows the sort of before, and then the reaction to it, and then the after. And you can see that on the last tier here, where somebody gets shot, and we see that Bruce Wayne has jumped in to save this woman. We don't actually get to see him doing it. We just see the bullet go through something, and we see that Bruce Wayne is on top of her, having saved her. And you're going to see a lot of this stuff throughout the stories we're going to show today. There, on the next page, there's a great bit of there's a great use of silence. One of the best aspects, one of my favorite aspects of writing is when you can ingratiate the reader, and the reader how do I put this? The reader is reading along, and they have to come up with their own conclusions, and so they're involved in the story.
Oh, you have faith in them.
Well, you also have to.
Also, like whenever you have like an important example of that is when you have visuals contradicting the dialogue. When someone is saying something, but you see the visuals saying something different, you as the reader have to come to a conclusion. You're not being told anything, and so because you're getting more involved, the story becomes more important and has more impact. This is another example of that, where like somebody says something, and then you get a silent panel as someone sort of reacts to that. So I think right here, if you go up a bit, Colin, there's this guy talking and Batman is eavesdropping, and he like reveals something about the crime, and then Batman's eyes just sort of like squint a bit as he realizes, and we as the reader come to the same conclusion that Batman comes to, that like these two were involved somehow. And then you get in the next panel, you get this is her brother-in-law, I guess.
No, it's her stepson.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And he, yeah. But he refers to her as a trophy wife. And then you get a silent panel of her, reaction to that. And then she says something mean. And then you get a silent panel of him reacting to that. And a lot of this stuff puts you into their headspace as you have a moment to think of like how they're reacting to this stuff.
But also Batman's, so in Batman's headspace, you can see that when he sees him slap her, Batman clenches his fist.
Yeah.
Because the line that she even delivered was one basically implying that her stepson's not a real man. And then he does something that a real man would not do. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and realizes it. It's a good I mean, it's a non-representational style that Risso has, but shout out to his body posture, his character postures.
Oh yeah,
like the aftermath of like it just really sells just how grimy and wormy this twerp is.
All right, moving on. Okay. So like I said, every page for about 2/3 of this story is a completely new scene. It's a new development in this murder mystery. This rich guy has been murdered at the stroke of midnight without any ransom demanded by his kidnappers. So Batman's suspects as of now are his wife and his son. And from there, he still doesn't know what to make of it. He's just eavesdropped on an interaction between the two of them, and he still doesn't know what to make of it. So you, as the reader, again, you're in Batman's shoes as well. Whatever he hears, you hear, and that's all the information you have. But one thing I wanted to comment on, just as an off topic, one thing that I wanted to comment on is that the panels actually increase. So every page, like in this page now, outside of the header, you got 4, 9, 13. You got about 18 panels.
I think I might know why it is, and I think it's the dialogue. Like, there's a lot of dialogue here, but
like this it's
supposed to give you like this rat-a-tat-tat back and forth between them. Like you're cutting back and forth, and it's just made to make you feel as though, oh yeah, they're bouncing off of each other, rather than like long, drawn out, huge panels with. Because that feels kind of lackadaisical, right? When it's multiple interlocking word balloons. But I think in this, it's supposed to be they're sparring.
Well, like from a story perspective, it's a mix of them flirting, but also Batman trying to get information. And for me, there's a fun visual element here where this is like, what is this, week 4? This is week 4 coming out of a weekly comic, and you have to give, you got the big Batman logo on here. And in Wednesday comics, there's only one Batman story. There's only one Superman story. This is your one Batman story for the week, and there's no Batman here. But, a way around that is you get the shadow of, like Bruce Wayne's shadow is that of Batman in like the 5th panel.
Oh yeah,
and that's a fun visual to sort of insert Batman in there somehow.
I don't know why it's doing that. What the fuck? Okay, sorry, man.
And you get you're getting a lot of shoe leather taken care of here. Like, let's get all the information he's going to need out.
In this story, Batman is suspecting the wife as the killer. So he goes as Bruce Wayne and kind of implicates himself by sleeping with her to collect her DNA to test her DNA against the evidence from the crime scene.
That is
So
some. That is some. Whew.
Risso tends to go in these bold directions. Sorry,
Yeah, that's like
Azzarello. I mean Azzarello.
and the thing is that's part of what I really like about this team is that their crime based approach, especially to Batman, works so well. Like that's yeah, it's something straight out of an espionage thriller, right? Like you got to
Well,
yeah,
go get that DNA. Oh, I'll get it for you. Don't worry.
well, and that's another thing is that this is a duo that's known for their crime stories, and Eduardo Risso is a Batman fan, but I don't think Azzarello is. I mean, Azzarello is. I think I might be wrong
What
about
is
this,
he a
but
fan of?
I think he's been public about how he's not the biggest fan of superhero stuff. He is writing a detective story. He's writing a crime noir detective story, and it
Yeah.
just so happens to be Batman involved. And that's in this story, and that's in the Broken City story as well. Uh, you could you can kind of take out the the cape and tights to some extent, and still have the skeleton of the same story for a
Oh
detective
yeah.
story.
Oh yeah. As yeah, if this were a spy investigating a crime, which that's definitely been done before. That's exactly what you have here. Even his even his Superman for Tomorrow is written as a crime mystery.
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's
It's
funny. I was going to bring this up when we actually go into Broken City, but Azzarello was hired to do both Batman and Superman at the same time. So the For Tomorrow run came out with Jim Lee at the exact same time
Oh really?
as his 6-issue run with Rizzo on Batman.
Wait,
Oh
was
cool.
it? That was
Yeah.
2004?
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and in an interview, he said that DC pretty much gave me the keys to the Ferrari and the Maserati at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's interesting. He was just starting out at Vertigo writing these crime stories, and then 100 Bullets just took off. And I think, I don't know if this is connected, but I think when Joe Quesada took over at Marvel, he just mined the Vertigo talent for new Marvel at the time, like Marvel Knight stuff,
That makes sense.
and got a
that's
lot of
because he's
success.
so smart.
And so why wouldn't DC do the same? Let's like we've got these brilliant people on successful Vertigo books. Let's bring them over to the main titles.
Yeah, I do think that it's going back to this strip. These panels where there's no people in them uh, actually help the reader slow down. I think a little bit. It's setting up atmosphere. It's setting up background, the environment before it
Yeah.
goes into actually like basically. So the context of this page is Batman is staking out a suspect, and the suspect suspects that there's somebody watching him, and so a lot of this is done in shadow. A lot of this is done with props. But you don't actually ever see any sort of real background. It's all in silhouette.
I think that's a good point. It because you're right. It makes you slow down, and I think a part of that too is because they're not immediately connected. You do have to, as a reader, go, "Wait, what's happening here? What's going
Well,
on?"
and there's also another thing. In 100 Bullets, Azzarello had a whole cast of characters, a lot of badass characters, and there was a fun thing he did where I think he assigned a specific drink to every character. And he might have some sort of like thought process behind like the type of person that would drink this or that. And so it like if you scroll up a bit, Colin, you can see like I guarantee you in the script it says this guy has what is it, Kentucky whiskey there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Azzarello, like when he gets deep in his characters, he knows I guess what they're gonna order at a bar. I love the lighting on that panel where he's looking out the window, because he looks one way and then he looks the other way, and
Yes, I was going
you
to bring that up.
yeah, you can see he's essentially backlit here, and when he looks in the back, he's just being washed with light,
Yeah.
because that's where the light's coming from, and it just looks great. Something that Azzarello is like, his finest quality is lighting. He is an expert at lighting the human figure. He's an expert at lighting for a scene to create that perfect atmosphere that he wants you to feel.
Before we get comments, you mean Risso?
Oh, what am I saying? Risso?
Well, I mean, this is what we're talking about, right? Is there such a tight team that we have several times confused?
Oh, well,
Shit.
Risso's. Oh, and did I say I've been
Yeah.
mixing them up all episode,
That's
but
all right.
A lot of
yeah,
Zed
they are a team. So
Yeah.
I guess that goes to show. But like yeah, if we were to assign film terms, I mean, I think Eduardo Risso would be the best cinematographer in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. His use of shadow and light and line is. Oh, I can't wait to talk more about it.
Well, I do want to say, so there's a couple of points I wanted to make about Rizzo's storytelling. One is that his storytelling, when he's designing a page, he's only thinking about the comic storytelling. He's not thinking in terms of filmmaking or anything like that. He is setting up that he's communicating something that can only be told in comics.
But one of the things, and I noticed it a lot in Broken City, is this Batman is, I don't know how to call him other than sassy at times. Like
Yeah.
I got a lot to say about Azzarello.
real character. That's
the
like,
rendition.
yeah. I enjoy, like, the smile on his face in that second to last panel is, I fucking got you, and I enjoy that. It's fun.
Yeah, and something great about this page in particular is that modern comics are like 20 pages. A lot of the writers would love to do scenes like this, but there's just no time. You need to get a lot of story out there, and you would not get something like this in a lot of modern Batman comics, because there's just not a lot of there's not enough page real estate. So yeah, it's a great bit of characterization of just sort of like tension building. Batman's fucking with this guy, and then he goes in there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And
now,
then
on
yeah,
this,
you get Batman again in this page, just still fucking with the guy. He's just like dropping glass onto him and then catching it at the last minute, and grabbing his cigarette and just holding it close to his eye. This is like the detective just like beating a guy up to get information, basically.
And it's like Batman's not a cop. There's nothing really holding him back. It harkens to the American desire to love the Constitution, but also it gets in the way sometimes.
It gets in the way of crime.
Yeah, but it is a reminder. Batman's not an official. He can do this, and there's literally no one to stop him. Which is again a great character moment. Or character, not moment, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I want to go back to, again, he's breaking up the moments in time again into units. So there's 3 panels here, there's 4 panels here. I'm going to say offhand, this cigarette butt is way too close to the eye. He's doing some damage to this guy's retina. No, I think this guy went blind. For a good day and a half. Yeah.
That is kind of the MO of Azzarello's Batman, though, isn't it? Of like, when I hurt someone, it is to make sure they're not going to do crime anymore. Like it hobbles their ability to continue this.
Well, I mean, I've worked in construction and even welding. if you're not wearing that mask and you're staring at that flame, even though you're, you could be 10 feet away from it, you're still going to see that little dot in your vision for the next, 20, 30 minutes. So a cigarette butt this close to his eye, I think did some real damage. But that's a whole...
This is a great transition where like he drops the cigarette and the cigarette like almost lands into the very next scene where we see like he's just trying to get a name. He's trying to get like the name of the guy who hired you, and he gets the name, Carlton Glass, as we see what Carlton Glass is up to. But we also learn in this page, this is a clever page because the murderer ends up killing Carlton Glass in the last panel, and so what I thought he was the culprit though, but I guess not because he just got killed.
Yeah. And the dogs, they're a returning motif. They were in previously, like, oh, I thought those dogs were his or the
I mean, it's
second with the wife or something.
It's specifically there so that when we see who owns the dogs, we know who's responsible. It's it's supposed to be some sort of like visual signifier of the guilty party.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I love, actually, I'm going to zoom out. So a page, even for a comic strip, for a single page, I love that he uses all the real estate for this establishing panel. I love that because immediately you have the diagonal line from this newspaper box that leads you back up to the top. And
it's all leading you to that.
Yeah. And now the panel count gets less and less towards the end. Now we're over the hump. So this is, I think, page 7 or 8 out of 12. So now we're getting closer to finding out who the killer is. But I think Batman's already figured it out. And spoiler alert to the audience, but it's the wife. The wife.
It's the femme fatale.
Exactly.
Isn't it always the femme fatale?
Sometimes.
Now, with Azzarello's contribution to this, outside of just the general storytelling aesthetic, is the dialogue. I love the way Azzarello he writes the dialogue for a comic book from panel to panel. So in this case,
there's a poetry to it.
There's exactly, yes. There's a poetry to it. And there's a lot of this in 100 Bullets, but one good example is right here, panel 2, 3, and 4. From panel 1 to 4, there's a line of dialogue by Commissioner Gordon where he says in panel 1, he says, "It's tough when we don't get it right. I know." Panel 2, he says, "More so for me than..." And then he cuts mid-sentence to panel 3 where he says, "you." So it's more so a problem for Jim Gordon than for Batman. And he says, "You don't have anyone to answer to."
Me?
And then
he says, "Me?" And then it cuts into...
Exactly. So there's a continuity here where it's still the same person delivering the dialogue, but he breaks up the lines, even mid-line, from panel to panel. There's a lot of great examples of this in 100 Bullets, but here he's talking about how, every mistake that Batman makes actually impacts Gordon more so than Batman, because Gordon has someone to answer to. He has superiors who he's like, "Yeah, we're on the case. We're getting closer or further away from finding out who the killer is." And Batman has no accountability whatsoever, right?
Yeah, this Azzarello's dialogue makes me think of Elmore Leonard. Did you guys ever read any of his books?
Oh yeah, love Elmore Leonard.
Yeah. Every character that speaks in a Elmore Leonard book feels like, that is what a person would say. That's what a real person would say.
Oh, interesting that you say that, because I mean, my take on Azzarello's dialogue is that nobody talks like this. Like, nobody talks as clever as this. Like, everybody is making grand points about who we are in this world and what everything means.
I guess what I mean is the style. Like, you have Jim Gordon making a point and then going, "Me? I'll spend tomorrow answering for you." Like, it's just like it's the cadence, it's the structure of how people talk. It's not formalized. It's not necessarily following grammatical rules. Like, the subject matter, yeah, you're right. It's very, city primeval, the weight of the gods on all of us sort of thing. But the feel of it is very, yeah, that's how people talk. That's the way people talk. That's not what they say, but it's the way they talk. If we were
And
all a lot smarter, this is how we would sound.
yeah, and I mean, Azzarello is one of my favorite writers. Like 100 Bullets is like high up there. Having said that, I do think the dialogue at times can get a little too clever to the point where it can create a bit of a distance between me and the characters at times.
Sure.
Where I'm not fully relating to them as human beings because they're both, because every character is in this sort of heightened reality where
Where a man
everybody's
dresses up
clever.
as a bat to beat up mental patients.
Well, there's that, but even in 100 Bullets, like just everybody is extremely clever about everything they're saying. But I mean, yeah, it makes for a very fun read, though.
Yeah, it does. There's a line that has lived in my head from 100 Bullets for 20 years now, and it's one character says, "Jesus Christ, fucking asshole," and Lano replies, "Are you calling our Lord and Savior gay?" And it's just like, that's not something that you could come up with immediately. Like you could not react to that exclamation that quickly, but it's still like I think about it at least once a year of, oh, that's pretty clever. Fuck.
and there's a bunch of clever lines in 100 Bullets, like where things just have double meanings. A lot of characters are revealing stuff to other characters but like they're actually revealing stuff to the reader because the other characters don't understand the second meaning behind things. It's just like you can tell he puts a lot of thought into this dialogue, and a lot of thought to the musicality of the dialogue as well.
Yeah.
So on this page, let's see. This is a nice little action scene.
Yeah.
And Risso captures beautiful moments in time. Well, I say beautiful, but this is actually pretty awkward, where he's trying to kiss.
But it's captured beautifully.
But it's captured beautifully. Like you can tell he's going full French tongue mode, and she's struggling, like to push him off.
To get through this moment, like, yes, this is what I got to do.
Yeah, and it's the situation where this guy's saying, "Come on, Luna, no means yes, right?" And then Batman comes in to say wrong. It's this sort of like heightened reality of how people speak. I love how his teeth get sort of snagged on the shirt,
on the undershirt. Yeah,
it's a nice little detail.
Nice top job.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing that I've always appreciated about Risso's art, is just weird little, like, that's probably not going to happen, but it's not outside the realm of possibility, and it just looks more it makes it feel more uncomfortable. Like it communicates the discomfort of the Batman pulling you out.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is you can't get a lot of these details from like photo reference.
No.
This is something you sort of discover in the sketch phase, and that's like one of the beauties of his work is you get a unique vision from an artist. It's not like your typical photo ref realistic looking Batman fight. Same thing with how he thinks about lighting. Like how he thinks about lighting is just like on another level that you can't necessarily get from just like going out with a bunch of models and like taking photo reference for this. You have to have all this knowledge as a basis and just put a lot of thought into the layouts.
Yeah, I think it's actually something we've been talking about through a lot of these, is the pushing of reality to communicate what you're supposed to be feeling when you read these.
Yeah. Where like the lighting doesn't have to necessarily make realistic sense.
Yeah.
It has to be there to heighten the story and to heighten what the reader is supposed to feel.
Exactly. Yeah.
When I was
Well,
preparing for this episode, I started rabbit holing a bit on Rizzo's work, and I tried to actually track his lighting sources from panel to panel, and I failed miserably.
It makes no
There's
sense.
no rhyme or reason to any of it. It's whatever looks good, right?
Well, no. There is a reason for all the lighting choices. It's not about looking good.
Well, no.
Not
That's not what I'm saying. Like, obviously, he's composing the panel, so of course the lighting source is actually like he puts thought into it. I'm just saying from panel to panel, there wasn't like just one directional
consistency.
Light source. Consistency, yeah.
But that's for the case of movies as well. When someone has a rim light on them, and you have a reverse angle, that rim light is gone. The rim light exists for that specific shot that's being taken in a movie.
Yeah, because that shot needs that lighting. It's unfortunately something that is I don't think we see that much of these days in movies, TV, and comics. Is this weird? I don't know if it's. I'm going to say insistence on. Well, it has to be realistic. I think we've all spoken about about getting trapped in that.
Well, it's the cinema sins has ruined movies because it's just like, I caught an error, or I caught something, a continuity gaffe, and it's like, oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I've seen. I saw a post a couple of months ago about the lighting source on The Fabelmans, and I guess there's a shot where you can see just like the light on its support pole outside of a window, and like they're not even trying to hide. Yeah, it's a studio light, but you don't notice it until someone points it out because Janusz Kaminski and Spielberg have decided, no, that light source needs to be coming from the window. It needs to be there. It doesn't matter that it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's storytelling.
Yeah,
is more important than reality. Like making the viewer or reader feel a certain way or conveying something to do with the story is much more important than reality. And and that's one of the great things about Risso is he is very story focused, and he's not concerned with reality. He's not trying to create realism. He's not trying to create the most realistic Batman you've ever seen. He's got a unique vision. He's got a unique view of the world, and he's the only one that draws like this. And we love it.
Yeah,
this is one of my favorite pages of the entire story, where he chases the wife back to the mansion. And this panel specifically, look how beautifully composed this panel is. You know, the shadow of her with the railings and everything. Oh, and then she sicks her dogs on him, and he takes care of the dogs in this panel. So this is like a 1, 2, 3, 4. So like a 6-panel fight scene here with him and 2 dogs, and he's pissed at the end. So much that she's obviously terrified because
I love the way he also shows Batman taking battle damage. Like he gets messed up in the face, in the body.
Oh yeah, this shot.
He's a man that gets
like
crunched.
This guy's pissed.
Yeah. He took.
He's sweating.
And he took. It looks like he took some teeth and some nails to the face.
But he's over your shit. Yeah. He has no time for your shit at this point, right? This is just. I love this shot. All right, let's.
But this is great. It's got such a spooky feel.
Yeah, and I like how this is week 11 of a weekly strip, and so you have to like establish your setting every page. And so in this one image right here, we see like clearly these dogs have been through something, and we have Batman coming towards her. Like you can see everybody's body language and figure out what happened last strip.
Oh yeah, those dogs are stressed the hell out. They are leaving.
Yeah.
Which Fuck, dogs are so goddamn difficult to draw.
Yeah.
Not as hard as horses.
Oh, I find any four-legged animal, which is all of them except humans, to be so fucking difficult. It's just, man alive. But you're right. Horses, God, those big stupid faces of theirs, god damn.
Those big stupid faces.
Yeah. This is expert storytelling. When you know you have only 12 weeks, 12 pages to tell this story, and what you choose to do. I mean, how much of this do you think Azzarello scripted out, and how much of it do you think Risso actually choreographed on the page?
I'm very curious about, like, beat for beat how much Azzarello was coming up with, and beat for beat how much, like, just how much the script is breaking things down. I'd imagine, like, quite a bit of it is broken down by Azzarello, but, like, Risso adds quite a bit.
Well, they've been doing what they by 2011 they've been, or 2009 they've done what, 100 bullets issues.
No. This was
You're right. 2003
Actually,
to 2004. Oh, excuse me. No, this is 2009.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Broken City was
I'm mixing up. I'm on the same path as you, Colin. I'm getting mixed up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have done 100 bullets by this point.
Yeah, and they speak. I think they talk about how they have a shorthand now. Like, they just have it figured out now.
They trust each other.
Because I want to say I've heard an interview with Azzarello on Word Balloon. Shout out to the OG, and he was saying like Risso only speaks Spanish or only reads Spanish, so
he's got a translator.
So it has to be like translated. But so I can only imagine just how difficult it must be, but so satisfying at the same time when they do come to a shorthand. It's like
amazing.
At some point, Azzarello must have seen work on 100 bullets or something else and went, "Oh, okay, he knows what's up. Okay, yeah, let's go, let's roll."
But Colin, if you want
to, so this it's not the last panel, but right here.
There we go.
Right. So this panel stands out to me because, yes, there's three people in this panel, but you can tell he has a whole SWAT team behind him. Right. That's why he's holding up his hand, because he's using hand signals to signal, everyone to stand down.
He's set that sort of thing up earlier with the cars too, where he's really only drawn one complete car. The other two afterwards are like the suggestion of them.
But if you apply that to this bottom tier of panels, okay, so Batman's face here, how it's all black, actually helps with the transition to this one single panel where the background is black. And then it goes back to a well-lit last four panels. Like, these panels are very well lit. It closes out the story. This panel here is kind of like, it takes you out of it, but not really. It sets this panel apart. They have nothing to do with what's going on between these two. Right?
Yeah, they do feel distant from, like, no, he's dealing with something.
Yeah.
So actually, I want your interpretation of this ending here. She figured out that Batman is Bruce Wayne. So is he kissing her because she's about to die and he's being nice to her and wants to give her a kiss before she dies? Or is he interrupting her yelling his name?
Yes.
I didn't think about it until you told me. I think, though, she figures out he's Bruce Wayne because he says her name in Bruce Wayne's voice and not Batman's voice, right? We can agree on that. That's how she figures it out. He drops the voice modulator or whatever he uses to change his voice, and he just speaks honestly.
Oh, I mean, she's just feeling his. I mean, the panel there, she's feeling his face, she's observing his face, and then she comes to a realization. Like,
but his face is fucked up, dude. I don't think.
She feels his face, and then her eyes go wide. So.
There is something to that, I think, because like that is the section. Yeah, but that's the section of Batman that is feelable.
Yeah,
too.
and Colin, if your face was fucked up, I'd still recognize you.
Well, no, she's putting her hand on his face, though.
Yeah, they've made love.
Oh,
Don't say that.
Hey.
So they've been intimate together. They have.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
getting worse and
You know
worse.
what? Yeah. Going back to your point, Eric, about if he's stifling her last breath because she's figured out he's Batman with a kiss, it could go that way. But I do also think that he's showing compassion at the end here.
Yeah.
I think it's
could be.
both.
And he did
yeah.
feel something towards her as well. You know, like Batman's had countless love interests. So she's probably just another one.
I find this is such a heightened world. Like, all I can think of is like, what are these police thinking while watching this? Like, this is fucked up.
Yeah, we just saw the anonymous ninja make out with a dead body. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, a beautifully told story. Definitely one of the best out of Wednesday Comics. There were 16 strips in Wednesday Comics, and this is one of the highlights. We are going to do an episode that actually spotlights Wednesday Comics, and we'll get more of it into that later. But moving on, we're going into now Broken City. So moving into Broken City, this was a run that was serialized in Batman from issues 620 to 625. Azzarello and Risso took over just after Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee had completed their initial Hush run, the 12-issue run. And I would say that I was way more jazzed about Azzarello and Risso on Batman than I was about Jim Lee. Now, I love Jim Lee, okay? But when it comes down to somebody like Batman, I would much rather prefer Rizzo's take on Batman than Jim Lee. Jim Lee's more of like a barrel-chested superhero guy, and Risso, I think, just fits Batman way more. Now, this run, they essentially they transferred the entire creative team from 100 Bullets onto Batman. So you had Dave Johnson on covers, you had Patricia Mulvihill, on colors, and Clem Robbins was the letterer. Now, like the colors in this, we'll go into it a little bit, but I love the colors in this. I think the story works very well if you just had colored it flat. But the gradations that Mulvihill uses are beautiful. Like, I don't know how she can do it. So the covers by Dave Johnson. Now, one thing. So I've got the floppies right here with me. So this was not the first run of covers that Dave Johnson did on the Bat books. He also did some covers for Batman years prior, specifically Detective Comics from the 740s to the 760s. And I would have to say that entire run of covers, I think, is the best cover series of Bat books. That I think they're my most favorite series of Bat books ever. It had a very
must
simple
be quite
font.
a departure too, right?
Oh, absolutely. One thing, I mean, my complaint, I think this is my sole complaint for the entire run, is that they had the Batman logo is like a superhero Batman logo, and I don't think it fits. And I think it really interrupts the cover design overall, right?
Yeah, it feels like they should have had him or somebody design it with him or something. Yeah. Oh, and I remember that, like, that early 2000s logo as well as like, that's okay. That's a choice.
You don't like it?
I think I like it for something like Hush. I think that works well for Hush.
I think it interferes with Dave Johnson's cover designs.
Yeah.
Dave Johnson's a designer, right?
Yeah.
Dave Johnson.
I think Dave Johnson is the best cover artist working in comics today. Which I had been thinking about doing a episode with, you know, the clickbaity title, who's the best cover artist working in comics today, and we would just look at 200 Dave Johnson covers. So I don't know, audience chime in. Would you like to see that episode? Would you like to see an episode where we look at the best covers in comics.
Hell yeah. I got some Iron Man ones in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great. Like so we've talked about Azzarello and Risso and Mulva Hill, and um I think sort of like a fourth member of that band would kind of be Dave Johnson, because they he did so many covers on their works. I will say that I was an avid reader of 100 Bullets around this time. I was reading it monthly. I was just so invested in the mystery. I would lurk on forums where people would be like trying to figure stuff out. And around this time was probably around 100 Bullets. So this is 2004. This is probably around 100 Bullets issue like 47, 48. And I guess Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb are ending their run, and they got Azzarello and Risso got this offer. How about we put 100 Bullets bi-monthly while you work on Batman?
I was going to ask, yeah, what is this schedule like?
So I think it was almost bi-monthly. It probably wasn't perfect. I think issue 50 was double sized, so that took a little bit of more time. Yeah. But while these Batman comics were coming out, every now and then you'd get a new 100 Bullets issue. And I mean, that just goes to show of just how hard a worker Risso is, because he was drawing 100 Bullets while drawing this.
I was enthralled. Like, these first 4 panels, 2 of the panels are just credits, but panel 2 and 4 are silhouettes of the cityscape. And you get so much from just this first panel coupled with the dialogue. So this is a silhouette of the city. You can see that obviously it's vast, and the dialogue exposes it as so. All the chiseled granite and jutting spokes of steel give the impression that the city has an iron jaw, but it only fools out-of-towners.
Interestingly, with panel 1, he's showing. I mean that's a challenge. The script basically says the city looks like an iron jaw. I don't know how I would have done that, but I mean, this is brilliant, because I mean, again, like, it doesn't make much sense because he's like blacking out part of the night, I guess.
He's got like a marker almost.
Yeah, and
the sky.
It works, and I wouldn't have thought of that. But it's brilliant. There is another sequence in a couple of issues where we see the city again, and it again looks like a jaw, but it's a different way of conveying it. So he took that challenge. He pulled it off twice. And I don't know. I'm just in awe.
So we're going to jump around a bit, but I want to actually talk about at least the first 6 or 7 pages. This is his first scene where Batman is...
Hell yeah.
Batman is questioning Killer Croc on the murder of this pregnant woman. Basically, he strings up Killer Croc, and it looks like the way that Croc talks, it's like this is Tuesday to him. Batman, like him and Batman have gone through this almost week after week, right? Every week it's something different. But in this case, I you can see that Batman really relishes it. I love it when Risso shows Batman smile through the shadow. Yeah. Like, it's all teeth, right? Like, he can't wait to do what he's about to do. And in this case, in questioning Croc, Croc just got a new set of teeth. So he went to the dentist. He had his teeth done, and Batman is torturing him by smashing his teeth out of his mouth.
Whoa. He's not torturing him. He's encouraging him to give him information. There's difference.
Detective euphemism. I'm encouraging you.
He's the toughest guy in this whole fucking city, right? Like, Killer Croc. I wouldn't be surprised if he's bulletproof at a certain distance.
Yeah.
Well, he starts off with, "You got no proof I did it," right? That's how it starts, like Training Day. Here, I do
kiss, but then they don't.
Yeah, the Spider-Man.
It's so romantic.
The colors here are just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, this is fantastic. The Batman figure up at the top too. Like she is like, look at that.
Yeah.
Putting the gradient on it in the just in the right way,
Yeah.
and then the previous panel, man, it's goddamn.
And it's
Because they
all
must have worked.
mass. It's all like
Yeah.
Beefcake Batman is the best Batman. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
Like Beefcake Batman is the best rendition of Batman. I love it when Miller did it. Miller was the first one to do it. But Risso, I think, draws the current modern day best Batman. Um, but this panel here, how he's got
It's
this slight smirk on his face as he's questioning him, like he's leaning in to hear what he's got. He's saying, "Talk to me," like he's leaning in to hear what he's got to say. But Croc's got nothing for him.
I love the change of the chain around him too. Like he's been wearing this as a status symbol, and now it just every time we see him, it just starts to like get more in his way as he's tied up upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah, the colors, man alive. Okay, so they do a real and we can talk about more of this later if it comes up better. But these two really work together in this noir area, and but when I think noir, I think black and white, and what Patricia Mulvihill brings to this has just like this great neon-soaked neo noir thing going on that really lifts it up above just like aping an old film style and kind of like brings it into something new that I think you can only really get with comics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Can we actually go back a couple of pages? One more. So, first of all, actually, I want to comment on the very first panel on the left and then the very last panel on the right. But yeah, I was drawing a car this week with an open door. Not easy to do. Kind of a frustrating experience sometimes because there's just so many curves and weird details. But I did it and found reference and did all this details, all the detail work and everything. And I looked at this and noticed that he did the underdrawing to figure it all out and then stripped all the detail away and it's nothing but shadow. And yet he gets all the weird curves, he gets the buttons, he gets how unusual that side is. And it's just splotches of black and nails
a
it
little
perfectly.
Ridge that like it rests up against something on the inside.
And like there's a bit more on the left. Like, there's a lot more detail generally, which I ended up doing, and completely unnecessary because look at how detailed that form is, and yet it's just blobs of black.
But even the rain on the glass here, it's so expertly done that it's unmistakable, right?
And cuts through the black.
It's not cracked glass. You have a comparison for cracked glass with a windshield, so you can tell that this is rain. This is water running down the glass here.
Yeah, and then if we go to this this caption right here is like an important caption. It's Batman monologuing about the rain and tears and he basically says and the only time to cry is always too late, which is is foreshadowing. And I think he comes back to the like talking about crying, how he doesn't cry and why would he cry for Gotham or whatever, and rain is God's tears, and but like this is the end of the story. He ends up crying when it's all too late at the very end of the story. So
I also like the subtle the raindrops going upward here because he's being hung upside down on the next panel, but you don't understand that at first until you turn the page, and then you can
his
see
character
that he's being
designs are
hung
so
down.
fucking good. You would think a lesser artist would give him like crocodile themed clothing, But that's not what Killer Croc is. He's already got that with his whole body, but he is going to put on just the
He's about that leopard
douchebaggiest.
skin.
Yeah, it's just
Leopard
like such
skin
a.
print.
Oh, it's too tight and too flowing at the same time. It just makes you feel uncomfortable, but goddamn, does he feel like he looks good in it?
Gaudy.
Yes, that's what it is. It's gaudy. With the gold and like the rings that say Croc and ugh.
And I just want to comment. If we go to that previous page, I always just notice the little things like over the lifetime of a comic artist is going to draw 1,000 doors, thousands of doors maybe. I mean, I'm drawing Assorted Crisis Events where like there's a new environment, a new cast of characters, a new setting every issue, and I realize, oh, there's a lot of houses that I've drawn, and what I love here is that this is a very interesting looking door, and that's the thing is when you're starting out, you're just drawing a dumb basic door every time, and then when you go out in the world, you start as a comic artist, you need to be able to watch these mundane things. And when you come across like an interesting looking door, you kind of need to catalog that in your head. And I get the impression that Risso is one of these guys that just goes out in the world and just like stops when he sees like, wow, look at that door. That is such an interesting looking door. And we get it in this Batman comic where, that is an interesting looking door. And I find these little details pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do love this so the opposite door handle, the way it's lit, it's still unmistakably curved, just like this one.
Yeah,
the way the light's hitting it.
Yeah, like he did the work. He did the underdrawing.
Yeah, he did the work.
He figured out all the perspective, and we barely notice it, but the work is there.
Let's talk about Azzarello for a second. So the dialogue here, and you are Margot, far into the wall for my man. You seem to be backed up against it. Like this type of stuff, it works in comics. Yeah. It can work in film. It can work, as plays or whatever. But like from panel to panel, just the way the dialogue gets broken up, it's beautifully executed.
Yeah, there's a rat-a-tat-tat quality to it.
Exactly.
Snappy as it goes back and forth as you go from panel to panel. Which Azzarello is very good at this snappy patter. But again, like every character is clever. Every character is having like a clever back and forth.
Honestly, it makes sense, right? You don't really want to read stories about unclever characters. You know?
I mean, that's something to be said. There's a David Mamet quote about how people just want to experience stories of characters who are just great at what they do, which I think might be a little bit of that. But I mean, there are different styles of writing comics. Like this is 2004. In 2002, around this time, 2004, Brian Bendis was popularizing what you could possibly categorize as realistic dialogue, I guess.
Oh, like that. The whole, I gotta go to the bathroom. Number one or number two? Number two. All right. Well, make sure it's the whole. Just and so
so there are different styles, and this is definitely one of them where there's like a heightened reality where he's not going for realism. He's going for like a poetry and musicality when it comes to the dialogue, which I think makes for great comics when people are doing that. Frank Miller, I think, sort of pioneered that the musicality between panels.
This is also the height of our cultural desire for this sort of thing too. Let's not forget, like Tarantino has been firmly established. There have been a lot of bad Tarantino imitators that have come out in the previous decade. That is, our
people who don't quite get it. Like they think that the pop culture references are the thing.
Yeah, but. Yeah. That is responding to something that people wanted. And, sometimes you get, I can't actually think of a good example, but other times you get The Boondock Saints, which audience don't come for me. What a terrible movie. But anyway, the point
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
Okay, good. But that is like, it's a desire that, if in chunks, people get this idea of like what a story should be, and I mean, eventually it gets run into the ground, and because of too many bad versions of it. But I think Azzarello is like, he's really keying into, no, this is the good version.
Yeah. Well, and it's his style too. Like nobody else writes comics like this.
Yeah.
So I want to shift a little bit from storytelling to just line work for Risso. Like, he strips away so much in this woman's, and just this drawing of this woman with her hair, her features, like her eyebrows, eyes, just 2 lines for nostrils, this whole thing. I'm a huge fan of stripping away like this. This is true, communicating with as little as possible. Even though it looks like a lot, there's not a lot there, right? But you can unmistakably, this is a beautiful dame, and she looks suspicious. She looks, like, what's the word? I don't know, somebody help me. Sultry. That's the word. Yes, exactly. Sexy, sultry.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, she's alluring, but she's also dangerous. You're not quite sure what she's going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the line work, because when you zoomed in on that, my immediate thought was, oh man, there are so many lines that I would like thicken up at points and then taper off, but that's not Risso's style either, right? Like,
not really that. In this case, you're about to turn the page. How long are you going to stay here?
Good point. Yep.
Like, you got to move on, and he moves on to.
And it's directing you to that too.
Yeah, and then you get a lot here on this page.
I love.
There's so much information here.
Church, cathedral, castle thing.
You must have a lot of great reference of for New York City, for like interesting looking buildings and interesting looking alleyways. Because even on the next page, like, that looks like a back alley kind of, I don't know, apartment building.
Yeah, it's like the back entrance or something.
Yeah, I don't know where he's, like, he must have like a really impressive catalog of images. And
he's Argentinian. Argentinian. I wonder if that's more, because I was a look behind the scenes for my illustration this week. I was trying to find like Gothic cathedral in New York. There's only one.
Oh, yeah.
That I could find. I mean, I'm sure there's others, but I could only find one, and I was like, "Fuck!" I thought, for some reason, I thought this city was full of them. That I'd be drowning in options to reference, but.
Nope. So 100 Bullets is a story that is a very American story and takes place in a lot of different cities throughout America. And I remember reading a lot of comments from people who basically praised how he was able to distill what each city looked like in several panels. How like people from those cities would read like that specific issue and compliment, like, you really got my city. And but this is Gotham, so, but it's got a New York vibe, I guess, but it probably has like a lot more cathedrals than New York. But he's very good at doing these
this
sort of poverty-stricken elements of the city, and also very good, which we'll see a lot of drawing these like impressive, rich-looking lofts.
Yeah.
He's definitely got a skill set for that.
This guy's design
little fight here
is great.
Yeah.
That's a great pose too. Like, she is ungraceful in this moment.
It's a very feminine pose.
Boobs, and coat just flying everywhere. She is in a panic. You don't even need run, angel baby, run. Like, she's calling out something's happening.
Is that a Mazzucchelli homage? That has to be, right? That very famous cover. It's the last page of chapter 1.
Right here.
The last page of chapter 1.
This is chapter 1. Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be, right?
Yeah, I mean that's an homage to that very famous cover, right?
Yeah,
Which I
it
like,
is.
very deliberate.
It's
right
got to be.
there.
100%, yeah. Because you're right. And the reason why it has to be is because like this is not the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. This is the death of different parents, and you see the sadness on Batman because he sees it as history repeating itself, and trying to sell that visual, you have to go for the recognizable iconography in order to sell exactly why this hurts Batman more than any other murder.
Yeah.
You just sold it to me, Eric. Now I'm on board. Because at first,
Yeah.
as soon as you started mentioning how it was an homage to Mazzucchelli, I was like, and then
because
no,
like
you brought it home
the narrative isn't saying, and Batman is sad because this reminds him of the death of his parents. like that's bad writing. This is what I was talking about earlier, where it's the visuals are making you come to certain conclusions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that the way the cape unfurls. I don't know why. I guess
and
because
it wraps around his leg. It's great.
Yeah, like I don't think of when I think of big ass cape, I think Capullo or Dan Mora or
Well,
Jorge
McFarlane
Jimenez.
was the one who did
Right.
it first with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
But when he's and I don't think of Risso as doing that, but man, when he decides to, great. I think it. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but there is a feel of unraveling to Batman in this moment as well.
And I think that's part of why it's wrapping around his leg. Is it's sort of like messy. It's not his heroic moment. It's sort of like things are going wrong.
Yeah,
also, how the fuck do you explain how it wraps around his leg, and then it comes out from his back?
Like is it cut in half somewhere?
Yeah, like what is going on there?
It's
I mean, I'll let you
long.
have it, but
yeah, it's been sliced lengthwise from here to here.
There's actually two capes, and one just got caught between his legs, and the other one is kind of fluttering about.
Another great cover. We don't have to spend time.
Yeah, fantastic cover. Fantastic covers, but you see how logoless. So logoless, this cover works very well by itself, right? All you need is the bat symbol saying Broken City 2. But I do think, so I'm flashing up some covers from his Detective Comics run, Johnson's Detective covers, how you have the header at the top, but the spot image inside it's almost like a photograph. It's almost like you're reading a newspaper, like the front page of a newspaper, and I love that, like that pulp novel feel.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
again, my only complaint, for the record, is that they used the comic booky, the superhero kind of Batman logo for this. It was totally not a fit. I was not a fan.
What's weird is it feels like that symbol in the white silhouette, like you could easily adapt that to be the logo that they put up there.
Yeah, you could have plastered that up across the top.
Yeah.
But no. This is more of a Jim Lee logo, right? This is Jim Lee's Batman logo.
Yeah.
More so than like a
that feels like a Jim Lee face.
A crime thriller like this story is. You need something a little bit more stark, I think. Not so poppy. So I love shots like this. Like for the first page of a new issue, so this is chapter 2, right? So this is how the story opens up. Is you get a nice silhouette of a female police officer with the sun shining on her and is cutting through the shadow. Beautiful, beautifully done. Like, that's the other thing. It's like, so every issue of this, here, I'm going to pop them up here. So every issue of this, like I own the floppies and the hardcover, but when you were reading these, as soon as you opened up, it was like you're getting back into a story. It doesn't continue from what happened last. So whatever the last scene was from the previous issue, even if it ended on a cliffhanger, the first page of the next one was always something new. There was always something to settle you back in because it's been a month, right? So it was always something to kind of bring you back into the story subtly.
I don't know the entire genesis of this, but I think this was originally supposed to be a graphic novel.
Is that so?
That makes sense.
Yeah, there was in one of the trades there was a forward by Bob Schreck, who was the co-editor on this, because I think Will Dennis from Vertigo came over as well, and Bob Schreck briefly mentions that it was supposed to be a graphic novel, but then graduated into a 6-issue mini. But I don't know how long that lasted, and if it affected the scripts or.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. And the other thing, I mean, as an aside, obviously Jim Lee's Batman run sold like gangbusters. So what was was there much of a drop between the last issue of Jim Lee's Batman to Azzarello and Risso taking over? Did a lot of people stay on? I mean, it is a Batman book, so the numbers are pretty consistent. It's just like a lot of
you get a huge pop when Jim Lee's on. So
yeah.
In fact, like I think that's going on right now with the Hush sequel. Like
400,000 copies.
400, I was gonna say, 400 fucking
shit.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was on X-Men, 850,000 copies, something like that.
And 500 covers.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to keep it moving, but I want to come back to this panel here. So Batman is talking to the police, just kind of relaying some information that he's found. But he himself, he's actually winding down for the night. So he's removing his body armor and stuff. And I love how Risso takes into account that he's been shot at, he's been stabbed, he's been attacked in all different ways, and you can see those puncture wounds in his body armor. Right?
Yeah.
I love that we get to see the actual armor, because I want to say there's a lot of times where what you really get is some voiceover explanation of like, well, the suit is very thin, but it's made of some new Kevlar non-Newtonian material that like hardens when it gets stabbed or shot. And that like all of that is just Batman's musculature. But that this is like, no, he's an enormous guy who is then also put on notably large armor as well. Like it's bringing in that grounded feel of, well, how would he not die getting shot?
Well, outside of that, though, the decision making here of like even the banister, where he's really silhouetting each post in the banister. At the end of the banister with the this large sculpture here, and then you have the pillars, and he blacks out the pillars and like the ottomans here, the chairs, everything. Like he shows the shapes. Again, he's very expert at communicating form without showing you much at all, but you just take it all in, and you can see that this is actually like really like it's Wayne Manor. Like, what do you expect? It's all, curtains and paintings on the walls and all this kind of stuff, and large, staircases and all that kind of thing. I love that he strips so much of it away that you only focus on this, right? Everything else is an afterthought.
I think it also gives this feel of this is an empty house. Like there's not. Wayne Manor is very utilitarian in that it is over top the Batcave, but there's not really life in this house. It is a smoke screen. It's part of the mask, right?
Yeah.
No one lives here. I don't think we see Alfred in this at all, do we?
Oh yeah, Alfred's here.
Alfred's in it. Yeah,
Or
he's in it.
yeah, they're yeah.
A couple pages back, before as Batman is grilling and stuff, Colin, I wanted to ask you: is this a good idea for Batman? Should he be like? He just came in from fighting and shit. Should he be? I get protein fueling. Should he be lifting?
Oh, so there's a couple of character traits that I think Azzarello gets really well with him. So you're talking about
Okay.
him working out as soon as he gets home.
Yeah,
So
he's like, I
you can
can't sleep,
assume.
so I just. Whoa.
So Batman's on even in the daytime, even though he's not around. He's thinking Batman 24 hours a day, and I'm sure he's on all kinds of supplements and shit like that. And yeah, the testosterone is so high in him that he has to be moving all the time. Now, so I think Batman is kind of having this. He's taxing his immune system, and he's just going until he wants to puke. He's going until
Yeah.
his what was Chuck Palahniuk's line? When my muscles leak battery acid, right? He just goes until he can't go no more. Like if he's amped up, if he just got into a fight, it takes you a while to come down, right? So he's just kind of burning off that excess steam. Now, in the case of the
That might be part of it. But that's actually a character moment. That scene.
Yes, it is.
That,
In the
that's him.
dialogue, you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him looking in the mirror, and it's zooming in on his face in the mirror while he's monologuing, because he's asking like, what kind of cruel man would kill a kid's parents? And like this is basically highlighting his obsession with this case, like an unhealthy obsession, because this is personal.
But now that explanation makes it make more sense, right? Is that because that is definitely Azzarello's take on Batman, is like he's an unwell man. He's addicted to.
But he also
something.
He continuously repeats that question to himself: what kind of a cruel man is what kind of cruel is a man who would kill a boy's parents yet keep him alive? And then Azzarello cuts it at the last panel, but you can tell that every rep he's doing, he's asking himself that same question over and over again, and he's sweating buckets, right? Like, oh, that's such a great panel right there. But moving on to the to grilling the meat.
This makes so much sense too.
Like,
oops. Well, that's another character moment, because he talks about stress, and
and he specifically says, "You cook? No, I grill." Like, Batman doesn't cook. He denatures proteins on heat. He does not. He's not julienning anything.
Well, and also like the only time he does like a cook or whatever is the most stressful form of cooking, which is cooking a steak. And I guess it's like Batman's always on. He's never off.
But it's also something that he definitely needs. Like he needs to. A real life Batman has got to be eating constantly.
Yeah.
Hey, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And
isn't he supposed to be 200 and
Azzarello's Batman is 275 pounds from and that's taking the statistic off Batman
how do you know
Damned. Batman Damned
really?
#1, which he did with Lieber Mayhew, it listed his statistics that he's got 275 pounds of body mass. And
so he has to eat 275 grams of protein every day?
Yeah.
He's got a butler and a fortune, so...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But concerning all of these stories where he's like... This commentary where it's zooming in on him while he's talking about the case... I think I remember reading about the Counterfeit Detective, which is one of the best 100 Bullet stories. I might have... I don't know if I was listening to an interview with Azzarello way back in the day, but I do remember somebody basically outlining what the best crime noir stories have, which is that like a case comes in, the detective works it, and at the very end, the detective realizes that the case was all about them all along. And that's the case with the Counterfeit Detective, and that's the case with here. By the end of the story, it was about Batman all along. When he thought he was chasing murders and killers, he was chasing, I don't know, his inner demons or something.
Yeah, the noir movement or genre, I don't know what you'd call it, is akin to is the American version of like Italian neorealism and French New Wave. Like it's
Oh, really?
yeah,
But
they're
isn't
all
weren't those 50s and 60s, or that was the 60s, right? But neo noir stories were American ones were in the 40s, weren't they?
yeah, and because it's not necessarily style. What it's about is what the culture is dealing with. So in the 40s and 50s, America is really dealing with this malaise of being on the brink of war, the stress of being in war, and then having to come down from that stress. And that's delayed in Italian and French cinemas because they have to spend so much time. Nobody can really think about that because they have to spend so much time rebuilding their countries.
Yeah.
But after that is nearing completion, then they can start kind of decompressing from this thing that happened to them. And it comes out as these genres or film styles and movements that, I mean, in America, it takes on a very like, it's crime, see, attitude. And the rest are like, my bike got stolen, so my son and I have to go and find it.
Or just a couple arguing, and it's about
Yeah.
the like some Italian cinema is just or
Yeah, just
somebody
taking
goes missing, and
You just never find her. Yeah.
the entire movie is we're looking for someone and didn't find her at the end.
So coming to this scene here, it's Croc at the strip club, and I said before, I do think that this story would have worked very well if it was printed on newsprint with flat colors. But Mulvihill does such an amazing job with her gradations here that, like, this is like I feel like I'm being spoiled reading this sometimes. As I was flipping through it, I was flipping through the floppies, and when I was reading it, I was like, this stuff is like chocolate almost.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was eating it up. The lighting here in Croc's face and with the stripper, this is beautiful. I mean, he's ugly as fuck, but this is a beautiful shot. I think it's very well colored. And then here you got her handcuffed or tying him up. But you see, this would have worked very well with flats. All you need is some highlights along the arms and along her torso here. But this like even with the word balloons, not the word balloons, the sound effects, the gradation and the sound effects, it makes it pop overall. This is very. It's almost like it's a reach, but I want to say Blade Runner. Blade Runner introduces a lot of neon colors. That
neon
like
noir.
That's the
exactly.
That's the 80s. You're thinking of the 80s.
Which I think this is what it falls into. The neon noir, neo noir era is it's just an expansion on the previous noir era, but with just more complicated characters and more realistic reactions. But as a whole, it's still a kind of weird return to, boy, did we just fuck up Vietnam? Oh God. Did we actively fight against the rights of others? Oh yeah, we did. Like but it still comes back to think about yourself. Examine yourself. But now it's soaked in this neon like this. Like, this is so fucking good.
Yeah.
So there's a rhythm that's being created and a musicality to this, which is very intentional.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, and sometimes it's not just a bang, bang, but and then it goes bang, bang, silent, silent, bang. And the way you read that, it does have a very specific rhythm and musicality to it.
Yeah, because you get the quick succession of the two shells being ejected, and then you get the third one.
Yeah.
And the third one is the alternate story. The first story is two bangs. The alternate story is, the kid dies as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But to my previous point about the view that Azzarello has towards Batman, when in his dream, as he is saving his family, it's like I love the idea that he is using like his current knowledge as Batman and how he would approach this. And you get to see like, oh, I press on this nerve cluster until it pops. He's never going to hold a gun again. Like that is Batman's goal.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
going to damage
Yeah.
these guys
Right.
to the point where they're rendered ineffective.
Right there.
Yeah, and that's interesting because this is this first dream, and then he dreams again with another alternate story. So yeah, this is like a haunted man, and this case is really screwing with him. Which in the last chapter we'll see like somebody else comes around to screw with him even more. But
I think, holy shit! Like I got thin wrists. Somebody could easily pop my nerve clusters. Jesus.
If you go to page, the next page, you can see this is the second time he does the city in the form of Jaws, and so it's like, oh, he's just full of these ideas, and he can come up with clever solutions for these really difficult problems that are being presented in front of him. Like, how do you portray a city looking like Jaws?
Oh, okay. Hell yeah! Great call.
Yeah. So yeah, he just takes these challenges on and he knocks it out of the park.
Fuck.
It's like a gaping maw.
Yeah.
It's like a pit of hell.
It's great. I hope this is the sort of thing that our audience is like grabbing for their own practice. You know,
I hope they pick this book up. You can every page you can learn something in this, especially if you're an aspiring artist.
Well, and if you go to page 82, he does these zoom ins when he wants you to know something about a character. When he wants you to say like when Batman is pumping iron and we're zooming in on him. Zooming in on him is basically telling you there's more going on here than you think. Same thing with here. When the Seamus or whatever, what's this Bat villain's name?
Seamus means detective. He is referring to Batman with that.
Oh, well, okay. Well, what's this guy's name?
Scarface and Mr. Arnold, right?
Okay, yeah. So the zoom in here is another situation where they're telling you there's something more going on here, and it's a very character-focused situation. Oh, yeah. The fact that he's beating this person to a pulp, the zoom in is telling you this is personal. This is not just another killing.
As you pointed out, too, about the dialogue and the art, I can't remember if it's during that but it's around this point where Batman breaks down what is wrong with this guy. And that, like, he runs the puppet, but the puppet runs him. So then for us to see, no, he just beat a man to death with the puppet. You're right. It just...
Yeah. Like, he goes deep with these characters.
This is the scene that you're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah, but he wasn't violent. That part of his personality had been transferred to Scarface, a nasty puppet that pulls his strings. But we just don't beat a guy to death, and it's clearly him. But he's not going to say it. He's not like, this is for me, Arnold the puppeteer.
On the next page, you see our Mr. Arnold takes a cigar, smokes, and then the smoke comes out of the puppet. One page over, if you go back.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah, on the third and fourth panel.
Holy fuck, that's great. Yeah, because earlier you see him like drinking water while the puppet's talking.
It's like, and then on the next panel as well, more smoke comes out.
That's so weird.
Wild. I
love it.
Yeah.
And then you see he's still got the cigar in the next panel.
And but that's what, like, when I think of a real life mafia don, that's what I picture. Like, I feel
somebody with big psychological damage, like
no, well, but just like that look, like he's just like this kind of vulturic old Italian guy. Like, gone are the days of Don Corleone, right? We've got these spiky old guys that are like vicious little weirdos.
The ones that
Yeah.
survived to old age.
Yeah, yeah, because you got to be so wily, right?
Yeah.
You got to be willing to do anything.
Yeah.
So I guess Batman is dreaming about this every night, and every night it's I guess telling us something different. So he learns that the girl that died was pregnant, and so now in this dream, his mother, who gets shot, is pregnant. And if you go over another page, you see these beautiful reds that Trish Mulvihill adds to it. This sequence.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to zoom out.
That's real nice.
So what this dream is saying is you're taking two cases that are completely different and you're merging them together. So this is like and the dream isn't telling him this, but reading this a second time, this is basically what's happening, because like you have the murder of his parents, and then these characters from a completely different case come in and start talking about that case, and also his mother is pregnant, and really these are two cases that should be separate, but he's like conflating them because he's taking things too personally.
Yeah, it's a great it's a noir all the way through. It's an inversion of what you normally get, two cases that merge.
Using just red like this in a scene, I don't think, like, especially in the modern Batman comics, being illustrated by who's it, Jorge Jimenez?
Yeah.
They don't do just stark red like this.
No, they don't.
It's
You're
all
right.
poppy and shiny and stuff now. Like this is true, like a true pulp noir crime thriller, right?
It is. Yeah, that's out of The Shadow or something.
Yeah.
Like, I was born in the mists of death. I stalk the streets now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's shoot ahead and then we'll close it out. There's some really nice yellows in here too.
Oh yeah, these color. I've been trying to figure out, what do you call this? Is it jewels toned?
Oh,
I can't.
What?
I don't know what you'd call it, but
What are
the
you
color
saying?
scheme or the color style. It's like, is this jewel tone?
Jewel tone?
Yeah, it has this kind of glossy.
What are you talking about, Willis?
I don't know. I'll bring it up when we get to a better.
No, but you know what? These yellows work beautifully, and actually now I feel compelled to go back and see if Mulvihill uses like a specific color to kind of pop the action in each issue. The reds obviously worked well in the dream sequences before, but yellow works really well here, where he's fighting against Little Boy and Fat Man.
It comes up again. It comes up previously when he confronts the penguin in his sky pyramid thing.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of those yellows going on there, and I think he's like, yeah, he's also fighting.
And the nightclub scene, or not nightclubs, the strip club scene with Killer Croc, where he's using the purples there. So I think there was some kind of creative choices in that respect, where she needed something to kind of like bring a highlight to the issue of like, okay, really draw you into the action.
I gotta say, I'm looking up her credits, and it's the most recent thing she's done is 2010, and I can't help but think, like, Trish,
wow.
where'd you go? Come back! This is rad.
Huh?
Take a look at this.
If we go back to the actual first 5 pages of this issue, there is a quality that these two have, which is consistent in almost all of their work, and especially in 100 Bullets, where this is a 5-page talking scene, and it's a situation you would get a lot in 100 Bullets, where you'd get like 6 or 7 pages of somebody talking, which presents a problem because this is a visual medium. Azzarello knows this is a visual medium. He's one of the best out there. And so in 100 Bullets, he would have the foreground characters talking, and there'd be some sort of action or some sort of mini story in the background.
Kinds of bullshit.
Yes.
And
oh, dude, you're bringing me back to that. Go ahead.
And oftentimes it would be a metaphor. The background story, or the background action, would be a metaphor for what's going on in the conversation in the foreground story. Right here, it's doing that, but a little bit different. Right here, he's presented with a problem. It's 5 pages of talking, and he needs to punch it up with visuals. And so he does have a background story with this homeless man getting assaulted. And this is not a metaphor for what's going on in the foreground. This is a character piece where, like, Batman is having a conversation where he's coming to some serious conclusions on this crime that he's been solving for like 4 issues. And he just does 2 things at once. He fights crime while solving this other crime. Which I thought was a fun way of solving that problem of just like, too much talking over 5 pages, creating interesting visuals and making it character focused.
Yeah. And not setting up, but reestablishing Batman doesn't fuck around. Like, he is running these streets. Because you have to remind people, or you have to kind of put your stamp on, what's your Batman? My Batman is a sad boy who solves every problem. No matter what.
He is definitely that.
But so the other thing is, so the story is now ramping up. This is part 5 of 6, and the other thing is now the action is getting quite a bit more intense. So you can see that Batman is kind of at the end of his rope, and he's been plagued by these 2, Fat Man and Little Boy, these new villains that they created for this series. And he's done. He's so done that he's just kicking the shit out of everybody.
Miller-esque.
Yeah.
Apparently Risso was just a huge Miller fan, and like they did this Batman project because Risso was a big Batman fan and a big Miller Batman fan. So he's definitely wearing that influence here, especially with this rain. This is Miller rain, isn't it?
That's Miller rain. 100%.
The only problem is it's colored.
Yeah. Now, moving on to number 6. So this is the final part of the story. I love, like, this story takes place in modern times, and yet here you got this old little, this Chevy, like a little jalopy here. Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that era, the 20s, the Roaring 20s, and all the aesthetic of that. But this story, another thing to lend credit to Azzarello is this story works in any timeline. 100 years ago or today, it doesn't matter. The aesthetic of the story.
Because you're right. And the way he solves it too, right?
Yeah. It's
not like Bat Computer says go to here. It's the guy I beat the shit out of told me to go here.
Yeah.
So it concludes with, it was Scarface was behind it all along.
It was Scarface.
A nice little.
I was surprised by this.
Yeah, this exchange with Joker. Now, I don't know. I think the story could have worked well with or without this exchange with the Joker.
It does feel strange that he is not brought up at any point before this.
Yeah, I get the sense, I might be wrong with this, but I just have a theory that there was a little bit of extra room, and also Risso is a huge Batman fan, and maybe he said, hey, I would love to draw Joker. But to Azzarello's credit, like, he did find a great character reason to put him in. This is not fluffy. This is the Joker basically fucking with Batman, and Batman sort of realizes the ending by having this conversation. Like, and that was necessary because the main crime is solved, and he needed some sort of story thing where he had a conversation with someone, and then he realizes that, oh, it was about me all along, which is, as we stated earlier, a very important part of this noir storytelling.
Yeah, because this is obviously channeling Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling interacting.
Oh,
And
I hadn't thought of that.
Just from the designs of it, and
Yeah, the design of the prison. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just that's how she figures out a lot of things. It's not necessarily in conversation with Lecter, but it is.
Yeah, Lecter doesn't give her the answers.
Yeah. But there is
he leads her down a path.
Yeah, but there is that sequence where she's remembering, wait, what did Lecter say? We covet what we want, and that's when she realizes, oh, we covet what we see every day. Oh, it's the closest villain, or the first victim is the true one. Spoilers for an amazing neo-noir.
But also, I would say, like I was saying before, how all the villains that are involved in this story, Joker, Penguin, Killer Croc, are all, because it's a murder mystery, they're all involved in murder, and they're all involved in gruesome murder. Whereas, Catwoman is a thief. And, Mr. Freeze or Poison Ivy, those more flamboyant characters, even though they may be involved in murder, their motivations are a little bit different from just cold-blooded murder.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
So to fit Joker into this story, he does play a Hannibal Lecter type character because he's the coldest villain of all of Batman's rogue gallery, right? So he had to make an appearance.
Freeze and Poison Ivy are both like they kill what gets in their way. They have another goal.
Exactly.
But you're right. The rest of them, like Croc, kills people to eat. Like it's he is a 70s serial killer.
Yeah.
So. Now, Azzarello does something here that a lot of people do. I think like Alan Moore pioneered this, where it's like you reframe somebody's origin, find another angle for it, and I mean it's become overdone nowadays. Like every writer does this, but I think back then it wasn't done as much. But it's basically just like, I guess there's an interesting thing where like the night before his parents died, the last thing Bruce Wayne said to his parents was 3 words. And Azzarello doesn't tell you what those 3 words are, but you can kind of figure it out. And I'm wondering, like, I figured out what those words are. It's kind of obvious. Yeah. Did you guys hear the same words?
I hate you.
What were the words? Yes.
Yeah.
I hate you.
It's just that's another thing, is he doesn't tell us, but for all 3 of us, it's just incredibly obvious. And that's like involving the readers. Again, like this is what makes an expert writer.
But it's also, you could say, it's kind of an editorial thing. You don't want to place into the canon that Bruce Wayne, rather, his last night with his parents, he wasn't talking to them. They actually just dragged him to the movie, and he wasn't saying anything to them because the night before they stood him up. They had other plans, and so he said, "I hate you," and he just didn't speak to them. And they dragged him to the movie the next night to try to make it up to him. And they were trying to make it up to him, but they ended up getting murdered that same night. And he didn't say, the last words he said to his parents were, "I hate you." That's really heavy canon to put in Batman's mythos, right? So smart choice.
It goes towards his guilt.
Exactly. And
you're right,
but Azzarello handled it he handled it perfectly.
Yeah. You can plausibly say, "Nah, that didn't happen."
Yeah.
This is how an angry boy remembers it, but nope.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he figures out that he was imprinting himself on this kid from the first issue, and this is another thing where like. If you go a couple pages later, this is another thing where like Batman doesn't tell us what the deal with this kid is. We figured out with visuals. So who was the murderer? Who killed the mother and father? Who orphaned this kid?
He orphaned himself. Yeah.
The call's coming from inside the house, Batman.
Yeah, and this is great because again, like we're told this with visuals.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
on the next page we get like the payoff of that foreshadowing where Batman says he never cries. And when he does, if he was to cry, it would be too late. And by this point it's too late. And also this is so poetic too, the idea that like he needs to hide his crying with rain, but it finally stopped raining, so he finds a broken sewer duct or something, or a broken drain.
Oh my god. Such a sad boy.
Yeah, it's very poetic, very
but it works in this sort of
the heightened reality
setting. Yeah, because I remember, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was listing what do pro wrestling, soap operas, and comic books all have in common? They're the exact goddamn thing. They are all they are so concerned with the minutia of emotional and emotional aspects of the character and their personal lives. So it makes sense. It totally works that Batman has to go find a bunch of water to cry under.
I love though how he closed. So I do appreciate when writers close out a story when they're doing a big run, especially on a big 2 book, on a franchise book, where they put the toys back in the box. It's more of a and life goes on kind of ending where Batman just comes back to, this is his 9 to 5. He beats the shit out of people. And in this case, he started the story with interrogating Croc for one crime, and torturing him by punching out all his teeth. And now he's got a whole nother case, and Croc's his main suspect. So you see him leaping at Croc here, and Croc's like, shit, it must be Tuesday again. It's one of those things. I love endings like that.
Yep.
This story, I encourage you all to pick it up, especially this trade paperback. Well, no, it's a hardcover, right? It's a deluxe hardcover. It collects Batman, this story, Broken City, which is 620 to 625. It includes the Wednesday Comics strips and also a Flashpoint miniseries written by Jeff Johns. I believe no, it was written by Brian Azzarello, but the overall plot, I think, was spearheaded by Jeff Johns, right? The whole Flashpoint thing was by Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
It was his baby. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So so the link for that, the Amazon link, is down below. So definitely pick this up. Like I said earlier in the episode, you can learn so much from just a single page of Eduardo Azzarello's art. Eduardo Rizzo's art. Excuse me.
We have all done it.
Yeah. So anyway, what else we got? Taylor, do you want to show some art for this episode?
Yeah. The Gothic cathedral with existing in a modern city is what I took inspiration, and his sick cape action. So
that's a beauty, dude.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Shit, son.
Feels a little unfinished, but
Colin, can you expand his?
I don't want to overdo it either. So I think this is where it's going to be.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Very nice.
How long did you work on that for?
A couple of hours.
Just a couple hours.
Well, the biggest chunk was because I wanted to take a Risso approach as well, where like I didn't want to overdo it with the preciseness of details, I guess. So the biggest thing was getting figuring out the pose and like, how's he gonna stand? How is he gonna stand on this thing? How's it gonna be angled? All of that I put most of the work into.
Cool.
Because remember, kids, planning out your drawing, it really works. It feels like a pain in the ass, but the results are much, much better. Don't be like me, learning this at almost 40. Do it now.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Before we close out, just a friendly reminder that Assorted Crisis Events is now available monthly from Image Comics. It's illustrated by our own Eric Zawadzki and written by critically acclaimed Deniz Camp. Contact your local comics retailer to reserve your copy today. Order code is available in the description. And the Dauntless Kickstarter is now live. A very special comics project that features 4 all-new tales, including one by our very own Taylor Stauft. Check out the link in the description. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.
Oh, yeah.